You're listening to the Known Legacy Podcast, brought to you by Known Legacy Ministries. For more information, go to knownlegacy.org. Now here's your hosts, Bill and Travis.
Bill, you haven't changed.
I know, it sounds pretty good.
I know.
I'm feeling pretty good.
You look good.
Man, last week we had a great interview with
Yes.
with John Mark, and it was so cool. I know that I don't know. It kind of wrecked me, but what did it do for you right now?
Well, before we get too far into this, remember, man, you can always find us on Facebook. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Instagram. We always appreciate likes and reviews. They help out. And more importantly, if you share it, that'd be fantastic. If you want to follow us and be up to date on Bill and his book that he's coming out and with the retreats that we have planned, go to knownlegacy.org. It's a great place to be up to date on everything that's going on.
Yeah,
And,
to let you know, we're also kind of developing a launch team. So if you're interested in being a part of a launch team for our book, please info@Known Legacy. It's really, really easy, and there's a couple of cool little things that we'll get to do beforehand. But if you're interested, we'd love to have you be a part of that launch team for the book.
Absolutely. And so this is what we're calling the hot take, and it's right after we just did the interview. We're going to release it a week later, and it's our opportunity to kind of share some thoughts, ideas, and pursue a few things, and answer any questions that you guys have as they come through on the info at Known Legacy, or leaving them in comments on Facebook.
Yes.
So we'll get to that. So Kyle, welcome.
Hey, thank you.
How you doing today?
Wonderful.
Fantastic. So, so for me, the few things that stuck out to me was, first and foremost, his unified heart with his wife, even though there were times that there were disunity, how God was just patient and persistent with them, and how when you have a big, bold calling, rarely, if ever, is it just you. It involves your family, and God's going to be working on your heart, working on your spouse's heart, and shockingly enough, will be working on your kids' hearts, so that as you move towards this big, bold calling of moving out of the house that you had built just for you, taking the financial hit, moving into an RV, all of those big things, God brought unity to the heart. He really is that John 17 where Jesus prays that we would be one as him and the Father are one. He brings us unity of heart in the vision and the mission and the calling. And so, guys, that means that we have to cultivate that relationship before the big, bold movement with our wives and with our spouses, that we're talking about not just doing the finances, but involving them in the finances, involving them in the spiritual journey, becoming a spiritual leader within that family setting. Yeah. Because as God's starts to call us to these bold things that our loved ones are going to go, man, that is crazy. Are you sure you're not insane? Yeah. We have that community, that intimate community with our family, our spouses, that we're like, there's nothing else we can do. We got to do this, and God's going to provide.
Yeah, it validates the journey, if that makes sense. Like, God's called us to be one flesh, and so if my wife is completely diametrically opposed to where I am, I need to rethink.
Correct.
And it's not just, there's not like Holy Spirit and then your wife's the other Holy Spirit. That's not what I'm talking about. But like, that's a big red flag. It should be. Because I've committed my life to be one flesh with her. And then from there, together, we make that decision. And so the thing I loved about it is, even in John's story, there was that moment where she was for it. And then they had to work through the struggle when they're sitting in the RV, and
like what it really meant.
She's scared. Yeah. And obviously they had long conversations, and then he didn't get to delve in that, and maybe we'll have another conversation about that, but I know that they had long conversations about what does this look like then, because we're moving together in this. And I know that if she was completely diametrically opposed, he would have said, this isn't the right timing.
Well, and I would add to that in the sense that we cannot change our wives' opinions. We can't change their thoughts, right? Only the Spirit can. And so as you're having those conversations, do not underestimate the power of prayer, and not praying that she would become,
come to my side.
Come to my side, right? But it's more of like, hey, together, let's just be praying through this, because the initial idea may be the starting point, but that may not be where you end together. And it may be very different than how you are envisioning this bold step today. But you got to do it with them through prayer, through conversation, and through just discernment of saying, what is God calling us to? Spending the time in the Word, continuing to invest in your church, getting reinvested in your church, because it's in those places that God will often move His Spirit to capture our hearts and to give us these ideas and this reality of like, this is what I'm calling uniquely you to do.
Yeah, and I think because in the midst of his journey, you see that, man, that just refines it. It shows it where it's supposed to be. We talked about before, like, if you're pursuing a dream, away from your family, you're simply on just like a getaway.
Right.
And so it has to include them.
Right.
And then you have to honor that thought too of like, wow, my family are scared. So it's not like shut up and listen, because you get that old mentality like, I'm the head of the family, dang it, and you're gonna, and it's like, no, I'm also called to be ministers first to this spouse and these kids. So it's like, hey, I want to go and do this thing. That's great, but are they going to be following you in that? And what does it say about your leadership in them and your spiritual guidance? For me, it really hit it because he talked about there's this calling. And I remember that when we moved from New York to Midland and Midland to here, that we were of the same heart, but it was still super scary. And you're like, is this what you're calling me? And he said, if you have something else in your heart, exhaust every avenue to where you're at a dead end with those. So that's not where God's calling you. Like the crazy, because there is sometimes those like midlife crisis,
Yes.
Like, I know that we know nobody who's ever bought a fast car and tried to date someone younger and all that kind of stuff.
Jeep.
But you're like, no.
That's not fast.
Exactly. I said fast car on purpose. No, but there's this element of, you see these guys have this midlife crisis, and that is it. It's this, there's more than I'm supposed to do. And you're like, okay, well, let me exhaust it. And I'm not saying go out and do those things, but as a child of God, bringing it to prayer and going, God, I really feel called here, but there's still this little thing in my heart. I'm gonna work this out and go, is that where I'm supposed to go, or am I supposed to go in this direction?
Is this a calling, or is this an idol?
Again, we talk about the onion. We're handing this onion to God. God, this is, I don't know exactly what it is, but I'm going to walk in this, and I need you to peel back the layers so I know exactly that's where I'm supposed to go, a step at a time.
Yeah. Kyle, how about you? What were some things that stuck out to you?
Just the faith. I mean, it's one thing to you have to recognize the call. You have to be in alignment, but packing up, selling your house,
golly,
just putting, hey, God's telling me to do this. I'm going to have the faith, and you said when they're down in Austin, we might have ended up in Seattle. I just can't imagine, and it just challenges me because to have that faith and to act on it, no net.
Maybe God's calling you to have a little boat community for people, homeless people, little boats.
Face each other.
I love it.
In the harbor.
Yeah.
But I think it's good. I think it's good because he's a normal dude. And you know what's funny? He's as normal as every other dude in the scriptures.
Yep.
I was reading this morning about Moses and seeing the burning bush, who was a shepherd for 40 years.
Right.
Well, in theory, 40 years, whatever. We know that 40 years later he's herding sheep. And so here's this guy was like, I don't think I have what it takes. And God's like, well, you don't, but that's where I show up. Right. And that's where I felt like with John Mark, he's like, I don't know why God called me to this, but it was also the step at a time. God wasn't like, and then tomorrow I'm living in a homeless community. It's like, years of a journey of letting go, because God,
thy word is a lamp unto my feet.
Yes,
for the next step.
Every step. So guys, in the midst of your burden of like, oh my gosh, I have this thing I want to do, it's like, just take the next step.
Right.
God, what is the step you're telling me to take today? Is that opening the word?
Right.
I want to do this great thing for God, but I want to spend time with Jesus.
Nope.
Then maybe you need to just start there.
Yep.
So take the step. What's the step that I can do today? And that's it. And go from there.
I love it. So one of the other things in this hot take is that we would process through any questions that you guys have. And so if you have questions, email it to info@knownlegacy.org. Could be goofy, it could be serious, it could be anything. Or you can leave it in the comments on Facebook or Instagram or on the YouTubes, and it'd be fantastic. So the question we got was, the Summer Boys. We're coming off of summer. We're in September. What was your TV show of du jour? Would you spend your time, whether you're happy with it or not? Where'd you spend your time? I'll go first.
Go.
So I'm a huge Peaky Blinders fan.
Okay.
And they released the final season this summer, and I think I blew through it in like a day and a half.
Wow.
And it was good. I'll tell you, the ending was shocking, but it was that for me was. I rewatched the entire series, and then I watched the final season, and it was fantastic. It was good.
Did you have one?
Yeah, Stranger Things.
Oh,
I just everybody was talking and whatever. Somebody told me it was basically a story about D&D.
Yeah.
Which I grew up with.
Yeah.
I would have been in it to it much sooner, but I had no idea. But it didn't really. I mean, the fifth season, I'm not even trying. It's just they've gone off the rails. But the first three seasons I thought were pretty good.
Very cool.
Yeah, so Stranger Things. So my daughter wanted to, and instead of me just saying go and watch it, I wanted to figured out what it was. I'm like, how crazy is this thing? And now we're into it, and we are into that last season, and we haven't started it yet because everyone said it sucks compared to the other ones, and it gets really dark. And I'm like, all right, we'll do it though, you know. So we're gonna do that.
Okay, maybe it's not as good, but my take is there's some characters in the final season that are like endearing characters that I absolutely love.
Well,
like there's an Argyle
great, yeah.
that's fantastic from California, and he's got this pizza truck van. You know,
I don't know that.
And
one
then
yet.
there's another guy who's like the D&D master, and you see him go from this scared kind of guy who would always run to stepping up and making the definitive. In a lot of ways, he becomes a Christ character, right? Where well, I won't give it away, but there are some endearing things in the final season. So don't.
Well,
you know,
I'll watch it. To me, it was sort of the opposite. The main characters were doing things that weren't in their character.
Right.
And
Interesting.
They devolved, like, you know, the guy not going back to the girl. Come on.
Right.
There's not a single hot-blooded young American boy that's not going to go back.
Yeah.
Right.
I need to watch it. I need to figure it out. But no, that one, and then on the other side, so when we first had COVID, my wife's like, "Oh, let's check out this show called Virgin River."
Where there is a river, but no one's a virgin.
Well, exactly. But
that's all, because I started watching it too.
It's named that because it's the only thing that is a virgin.
The river's the only, exactly.
Right.
But I'm like, so we watch these seasons, and we're like, okay, we'll watch the next one. And literally, I'm one of those things, like, I don't really get into it, and I kind of like, I'm doing the dishes, or I'm like, all of a sudden I'm like, wait, what's that guy? What's that right there? And she's like,
our journey's exactly the same.
She's like, are you just going to shut up and watch it with me? And I'm like, yeah. So there I am, sitting there making my fresh popcorn that I will now make with.
Try it with.
Oh my gosh,
try
bacon
it with
grease.
Bacon grease. Try
But
it.
I'm like, we burned through that last season in like 2 days. We're like, no kids, we don't have a life this weekend. We're just going to watch Virgin River. And so now we're like, what? Like now I'm in.
Yeah.
I feel like it's like a soap opera. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
like,
it very much is.
Where you're just going to, anyway. So that was the other one my wife got into. And
I'm kind of proud of you for admitting that on a national.
Let me get you my
podcast.
man
Well
card
done.
really
Thank
quick.
you very much. Yeah, I think you lost.
Hey,
that
you
a
know
while
what? It's
ago.
because I want to honor my wife. Okay.
There you go. There you go.
Well, guys, thanks for listening today. This is just those quick moments to catch up, and we want your questions then.
Correct.
So send that, but also we're going to throw a question out every single one. We're expecting an answer from you.
Absolutely. So, info@knownlegacy.org. Like always, you can see us on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Knownlegacy.org. You can find the latest and greatest on Bill's book, as well as the retreat that we have coming up in October. Long shot retreat. You can sign up there. It's going to be fantastic. This is our third year speaking at it, so we're going to have to come up with some new stuff.
We'd love to see you there.
Yeah.
So signeth, uppeth, todayeth. That was the King James. So,
anyways, thank you guys for checking us out. God bless you all, and we'll see you next week.
Have a great week.
Thanks for listening to the Known Legacy Podcast. We'd love to hear from you, so email us your questions or comments to info@knownlegacy.org.